I tell people this, I'm not a nice person. Oh, you're dangerous. Yeah, but in the best way possible. If I wasn't, how could I pull children out of horrible situations, set captives free, physically, emotionally, or spiritually? This stuff is far too risky, crazy, and we're always underfunded, certainly outmanned, undertrained. We have all these deficits, but I've seen so much death. I'm dealing with it right now.
Tell me what's going on, man.
Haiti, the gangs have united. They're going to overpower the government. I've worked in enough countries. I know the signs.
What is your theory of evil? How does this stuff come to the surface?
Brother, you just opened up a can of worms that if you really want to go there, I have the absolute explanation of why this is happening.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Unlock Your Potential. Jeff Lerner, your host. So excited to be back with you, having amazing conversations with amazing human beings, like today's guest, Victor Marx. He is a high-risk humanitarian. I love that. That's definitely, I hope you have that on a business card somewhere, because that's like a badass job title. He's fearlessly led missions to perilous zones like Gaza, Israel, Iraq, Syria, Southeast Asia, dedicated to aiding orphans and widows. He had his own harrowing backstory, overcoming a troubled youth filled with drugs and crime, found redemption through the discipline of military life and his faith in God. And he now pays that faith forward and basically does the dirty work that a lot of us sit around and go, oh man, that's unfortunate. I wish somebody would go out and do something about it. And Victor actually does. So Victor, first of all, thank you. Second of all, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate those kind words. And man, thanks for your patience. I know we've tried to get together a number of times, and it is just between me going overseas or getting called on a mission, or I think last time it was weather. We're having connectivity problems. We had a bunch of snow up here in Colorado, but I'm glad we're able to sit down and finally spend time together and visit.
Yeah, I'm super grateful. This is one that, for obvious reasons, I think I've been really, really excited about. And honestly, I want to just kind of try to nudge and mostly stay out of the way. And I'd really like to learn more about what you do, some of your viewpoint on why these problems persist in the world. And I also am always really, really interested in the man behind the achievements and kind of how you became this person that does this work. So that's the macro agenda. We can kind of start wherever you want. Maybe start with you. So you obviously work from home.
Yeah.
Wife comes in and out. I work from home. My wife, there's a door behind me. My wife.
I know. I saw her earlier, which I love. It's so we're based in Colorado Springs. Our home, we have some acreage out here. And for the longest time, our home was very hidden, quiet, secret, double fence, electrical. Nothing was in our name. We had to do that because of security issues. Mm-hmm. And then we built a range on here, and a little training facility for us to basically prep, train, prepare before we did missions. We call it being mission ready. We had an idea, but we never knew what would be next. Now, a few years back, we turned this into our headquarters training center. We get people in here to train with us in specialized groups from we had 10th Special Forces group with their wives come in, the leaders. We've worked with regular couples, men, fathers, sons. So we've turned it to kind of an all-purpose, but it's still a private training center, but it's still where we prepare and do operations out of.
Well, now, help me understand, because I mean, we hear about these groups that a lot of times are, ex-military guys that self-organize and go out and try to do good in the world in areas where they don't see the job getting done. And very often they have an alignment with some kind of a faith tradition or a faith foundation. But what you're talking about, I mean, your organization is a full-blown ministry, correct? All Things Possible?
It is. It's a ministry that we either use as an NGO in overseas work, non-government organization, or in the States, it's more a ministry. But our focus, listen, this is the best way I can explain it. Our focus is to help set captives free, physically, emotionally, or spiritually. This is very, very important. The setting captives free physically tends to we were quiet for years and years, but it's definitely taken a front row seat for people's, because the things we do they have been pretty dramatic. We didn't really consider that until, until a Delta operator, a retired guy, contacted one of my team members and said, "Hey, are you working with Victor Marx?" He's like, "Yeah." They were together at the unit. And he goes, "That stuff that they've started putting on social media, like rescues and ISIS and in Syria, that's not true, is it? I mean, they can't be doing that." And he goes, "It's not only true, I've been with them on missions." And he goes, "How in the world are they able to do this?" And I love his answer. He said, "Only God. There's no other explanation, because the stuff is far too risky, crazy. We're always underfunded, certainly outmanned, undertrained. We have all these deficits no matter what we do, but we have God's hands on us." And I'll give you an example. Now, granted, we do have, by God's good mercy, the best teammates possible. There's never a shortage for people who want to be part of this. And we turn away thousands, actually. We turned away thousands because, the scope of the work is based on the funding we get. And we never take government money. And I've turned down big government money lots of times because I said, no, we're good where we are. If God doesn't provide, we won't do it. But here's, I have a new book out called The Dangerous Gentleman. And it's pretty much just stories of stuff we've done. And it's meant to encourage men to embrace a level of masculinity, have courage, and don't be afraid to push through, get knocked down, get back up again, just keep pushing. But I think something that's kind of fun with all that is I was being interviewed. Somebody said, "Mr. Marx, so when did you retire? Or when did you do the bulk of this crazy high-risk stuff? Like late 30s? Did you end around 40? I go, well, my next birthday, I'll be 60. And earlier this year, my wife and I led a team into Iraq, Syria area region and rescued a girl who had been held captive for 9 years by ISIS. Everyone had gave up on her. She was a sex slave, had 2 children in captivity, and we planned it for about 6 months, had a phenomenal team. One of the guys, former Delta, one of the guys still holds a record at the CIA for some stuff. And another guy, no one would know, but he's phenomenal. And we put it together and we executed it in 5 days from wheels up to wheels down. And we got her and the 2 babies, the boys, 4 and 7, and returned them to her family. They were so blown away because we didn't tell. See, we don't say stuff we can't do or won't do. We don't make promises we can't keep. And We try not to ever overextend ourselves. Her family had no idea we were doing the rescue. No clue. So when we put her on the phone, they're crying. They're going, "Is this you? Are you?" She's crying. They go, "Where are you?" She goes, "I don't know." He goes, "Who are you with?" She goes, "I don't know. They're just like white Christians from America. Like no other, there's no other." And then when we talked to him, of course I was letting my interp talk to him. He's like, "Oh my gosh," I'm crying. And he just says, "Okay, what do y'all want? How much money? What do you want?" You know how good of a feeling, Jeff, it was to say, "Nothing. We don't want anything." And he's like, "What?" We said, "God loves us. We love him. He's given us a love for y'all. So we made a pledge to never give up on all the girls that were kidnapped by ISIS, 2014, 2015, and to do what we can." And this was the latest one. So needless to say, the interviewer was shocked. And I'm very stoked to be able to tell people our task force, which is the actionable arm of ATP Ministries, the task force saving children's innocence, protecting them. That's our goal, to protect children. And on that mission, there were 2 children. Had they not been rescued, would have become ISIS, bar none. It's absolute fact.
So they would have gotten absorbed into the ISIS machine while their mother continued getting raped for their material gain.
Correct. And they were called Cubs of the Caliphate. And brother, believe me, having them in our living room of our safe house in Iraq it's mind-blowing. And we document stuff for multiple reasons, but I mean, it's documented. We're watching them play with cars. I'm on the ground with them. And these little boys, it was a beautiful thing to see. But yeah, let me just say this to give people context, because I can't, I can say who we have, but I'll put it to you this way. Our task force, protecting children's innocence, which is both U.S. based and around the world, the Assistant Director of Homeland Security Investigations, HSI, retired and now is working for us. So that might put into perspective the level and quality of men and women who have come on board, who've partnered with us, like him coming on the team to help, to help in an area which is the worst situation I think America's facing, which is not terrorism. It's not, economic issues. I wouldn't even say international. We all focus on that, but the evil being perpetuated on children should be people's greatest concern, based on, if you hurt a child, you'll spend a lifetime trying to repair an adult.
Yeah.
And again, for perspective, last year, 31 million images of child porn were being circulated in the U.S. alone. And what I have to say about this, because there's people that are listening, and the people that get angry are like, wood chip them. Other people are be like, just put them in prison. And I'm here to say that we can't solve this problem through wood chipping in prison and killing guys who use children for pleasure. It's impossible. It's too big. So we do our best to focus on the most heinous, wicked men out there, or women, using children for profit and pleasure. And we work with, by, and through all agencies of law enforcement. I'm always kind of get quiet when people tell me, oh yeah, I'm part of an organization, or I work with, or I love and they're getting pedophiles and I'm like, oh, that's wonderful. But if they don't bring in a law enforcement aspect all the way to the DA, then I'm just kind of quiet. Now, granted, in different countries, things are, varied, but by and large, people aren't just going to, halo drop into a country with weapons, find kids, shoot bad people, and leave. It's not really like that. There are circumstances where bad people do get killed. It's very fresh in our operational tempo. And I'll tell you, and maybe it's a perception, I put out a different vibe, is I don't like violence. I actually really don't like violence. And even when, even when people get killed, it bothers me. It's, now granted, some people have to get killed. Some people have to die. It's what they choose. We call it the manifestation of evil. And if they're coming at us, we have a child in our care, or they're going to try to stop us from doing good by killing us, well, they're going to get their feelings hurt first. It's part of our approach and philosophy in what we do. But I need people to understand, because I get a lot of people, trust me, SEAL Team 6 guys, SWAT members, Delta, I get, people want to come, but we don't accept people who are just like, we want to, I'm like, no, you won't even make it past our selection. But with that said, it's important that when you're coming against evil anywhere, this country, other countries, you need to be prepared in case it ever does come to that, or else, it shortens your time span for being effective.
Well, I like this dangerous gentleman concept. As you're talking, I'm thinking, I know you have a martial arts background, for one. So as I'm thinking about martial arts, I mean, the purpose of becoming, as I understand it, as no expert myself, but the point of learning to be facile with violence is hopefully to avoid violence.
Yes.
Become dangerous enough that nobody wants to pick a fight, right?
Completely.
And I will say I run libertarian in my political leanings, and like at the core of libertarianism is that the only legitimate use of force is to oppose the illegitimate use of force. And that's my, pretty much my belief system.
Yep.
So talk to me about this dangerous gentleman concept. I mean, I feel like you're at the tip of call it a transformational iceberg of civilization, of society, at least, where you're not saying every man needs to join a task force and come start, liberating the oppressed, but like every man, I thought as I was reading more about the work that you do, I kept hearing Jordan Peterson in my head, who says like, weak men are incapable of virtue because they don't have to choose not to be violent because it's not an option for them.
Right. Right. And there's no virtue in that. Like he says, I try to explain it like this, because the title itself can be, some people can be like, what?
It's good marketing. We'll give it that.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's actually the only name that I felt comfortable on how to address. When people go, try to explain myself, I go, well, I'm a gentleman. It was the best compliment I ever got from my wife. When we were dating, she said, I've never dated a gentleman. And all of a sudden, man, my chest came out and I was like, ching, yeah, I win. And the other part is, when people think of ministers or pastors, most of them get this image of a very passive person and without a backbone. And I'm like, well, I know a lot of guys that are very courageous, to stand up for what's right. They might not have physical skills, but they have courage. And I started being known because of my martial arts background, my time in the Marines. And, there's a world record I hold on some stuff that people are like, oh, you're dangerous. I go, yeah, but in the best way possible. If I wasn't, how could I effectively engage evil with a level of confidence to pull children out of horrible situations or protect women or whatever? So, yeah, the dangerous gentleman. I tell people this: I'm not a nice person. Ask my wife. I got a temper like anybody else, and however, I don't like the term nice when people have said, oh, you're such a nice guy. I'm like, not really. And then they would be befuddled. So I had to think that through. I said, well, I think I'm kind more than I am nice. Because nice people, they typically want something. This is my observation in life is, okay, yeah, everything's cool. So they're nice until they get what they want, then they're not nice. Well, girls or women, perfect example. Date a dude. I always tell young girls and women, hey, don't date a nice guy. Like, what? And some older women get it instantly. They're like, you're right. Nice guys will be nice in order to get something from you. And if they can't, they're not nice anymore. And when they do, they're not nice to you anymore. They got it. Versus a kind person who will honor you, who will not try to take advantage of you. And they do the right thing because it's the right thing. And that's how I courted my future wife. I was kind, I didn't want to try to take advantage of her or anything. And we set some parameters of how we were going to be and act during our courtship. And I honored those. And I honored her. And so I just think that men have to be very careful, either by, like the opening chapter of the book, there was an error, I'll say, because it says I had to fight somewhere around 15 dudes or something. And it wasn't. It was only 10. And we're trying to correct it. I feel horrible but the guy helped me write it. I don't know why he was up to 15. I said, no, it was not. I'm very factual. But this opening chapter, I got to fight these dudes. They were good guys, but I had to do stuff. And it was over in Burma. But I hopefully take the sexy out of this whole mysterious man. I go, trust me, most of this stuff is just hard, tough work. And different warriors run in different lanes. And if that's one thing I could just express to your audience is not all men need to go overseas, do stuff that it doesn't even make sense. I turn guys away who are very experienced, but I just go, well, like, are you even called to this? It's like somebody going, oh man, I'd love to be a MMA fighter. Ooh, I'm a train. And it's like, are you sure you want to? The first time they get hit, even in training, they're like, okay, I don't want to be that. So, and there's nothing wrong with different lanes that people run in, as long as they're running. So to be a dangerous gentleman, you got to be courageous. Stand up for what you believe and know is right in the face of opposition. Otherwise, you become passive, and there's a time to be quiet. There's a time to stand up and speak and just say no. I think our country's gotten off course with that the last several years by people's extreme views of things that just got out of hand. And then because of fear, a perfect example is a co-ed bathroom in junior high or high school, and showers and lockers. what? Yeah, I identify as a girl, so I'm going to go, well, buddy, you can identify you want, but you're not going to use this restroom with girls in it. That's just inappropriate. And I've had the gay and trans community come at me full force, and I'm like, when people threaten me, the only thing I say is, let them come. I don't care. Just come on. And they get shocked when they know a dear friend of mine is Caitlyn Jenner. And we text back and forth all the time. So I'm like, shut your pie hole. You don't really know me. And what I believe, and I love Bruce Jenner, Caitlyn, which he absolutely loves this book, by the way. I mean, the last text was, it's him and friends holding up the book. Dang, this gentleman. So, and when I mess up on his pronouns or he or she, he's like, Vic, who the F cares? I don't care about none of it, he told me one time, Bruce is still in here. And I go, I know he is. That's probably who I best communicate to, the warrior in you. And, man, I've shed tears with him. And I really care for him. But what I'm saying is that men need to stand up, men of all people. Women have carried the burden so long, the mama bear instinct. Men are more like provider and weaker on the protector unless it's right in their own kingdom. But I think men are starting to see, well, you got to look at the broader picture, because whatever happens to the family, it affects the culture. So the breakdown of the family, again, I tell people, some people get their feelings hurt, and I go, well, some people need to get their feelings hurt. That's just a reality. If you're always I just say, hey, the absence of a father in the American home is the biggest detriment to where things are going. Hence why there's out of control child abuse. I mean, you can't imagine the men that have been arrested abusing their own children and setting up a camera to film it and sell it. So it's crazy, man. The direction we've been going. I hope there's a course correction in this country for better moral standards of what we believe is actually right and wrong. And I don't know. America can't do worse with having more gentlemen that open doors or polite,
it feels like, it's interesting. I mean, obviously on this show, some of these types of conversations come up, and even as I navigate the world and I talk to a lot of men, and my wife and I run these transformation events, and we get real raw with humans across the spectrum. And I think that the vast majority of people are right in line with what you're saying. Like longing for moral courage, longing for some normative, like predictability in roles according to gender.
Yeah.
Like most people are not trying to shake up the society snow globe and wreck everything. But for whatever reason, the fringes that seem to have somehow hijacked the mainstream media. And I think that optically, the world seems a lot more insane than it actually is at the level of the ordinary person.
And I like the way you framed it, the extremes, because there are extremes on both sides.
Totally.
Right? Oh, I'm like,
and what's interesting, after the recent election, it's like the extremes on both sides have come together.
Yes.
To just say, we can be friends with a common enemy, and the common enemy is just people that want society to function with some sort of traditional value system.
I have a friend who's very gay. I pick on him all the time. And he's a big influencer. Anthony, if you're watching. He was on my show, on my podcast. And he goes, man, I love you, Victor. I said, I love you too. I said, not like no gay way. He's like, he's dying. He's going, yeah, hard stop people. This dude, no. But I asked him a question. I said, Anthony, did y'all go too far with wanting your rights, freedoms, and that momentum? Did it go too far? And he's like, absolutely. And it was interesting because he's an honest intellectual, has a partner. He goes, oh, I said, how long have you been married? He goes, we're not married. I said, what? He told me how long they were together. I said, why aren't you married? He goes, that's a Judeo-Christian institution. Why does the gay community have any right to come in and try to change the definition? He goes, no, won't do it. He goes, of course, equal, equality and benefits and all that in a union. Yeah. I thought, wow, that's pretty good. But back then, well, I mean, anywhere in the world I travel, it's the extremists that mess things up. Anywhere. They're extreme in their greed. They're extreme in their perversion. They're extreme in their hatred for others. They're extreme in their ideology. And it's like, look, I've seen so much death. I'm dealing with it right now. And I got.
Tell me what's going on, man.
Well, Haiti. Got involved in Haiti, protecting an orphanage. And I did, but man, people said it couldn't be done. Both protecting an orphanage against gangs. And then when I saw it was untenable, I said, well, it's inevitable. The gangs have united. They're going to overpower the government. I mean, I've worked in enough countries. I know the signs. And I said, so I've got to meet the gang leaders. And people are like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? They'll kidnap and burn you. And I'm like, well, throw on the rape at least, don't leave that out. And I'm going, everybody is so scared to meet with the gang leaders. I go, you got to get over the fear and you got to take the risk. So I did. I met with the lead. His name is Barbecue. Jimmy Barbecue. If people just Google that, you'll see he's the first person that's ever united all of the gangs of Haiti. He's the most feared gang leader.
Oh, yeah. Jimmy Cherizier?
Yeah, look at you.
Former police officer?
Yep.
Wow.
And
all right. So you met with this guy.
Yeah, enemy number one.
Yeah.
So he calls me. He initiated reaching out to me through friends. They were like, hey, do you want to talk to this guy? I said, yeah, make sure he knows who I am and what's happened, because only a couple of days prior, one of their gang guys met, with a bad choice, and he ended up dying. So they were trying to get up to the orphanage in the town where we were. A team that I had inserted was there just to protect children. But it was really bad because the locals took this guy and hacked him up with a machete, his face. Then they posted it on social media, like totally trying to antagonize the gangs. So when I talked to Jimmy, I thought, here we go. And he goes, I didn't know who you were 48 hours ago, but I know now. And I know what's happened. I'm waiting for him to say, we're coming for y'all. He did the exact opposite, Jeff. He goes, how can I help you? I'm like, what? He goes, no one should hurt children, especially orphans. He goes, how can I help you? I said, wow, well, would you mind calling this gang the Mawazo 400 and tell them to just stand down, quit probing and trying to, they're using social media calls torment and fear. He called them. And he said, Lamu, do not attack that area. Leave them alone. We had a drone for observation. We saw them pack up a vehicle, motorcycles, guns, ammo, and leave. It gave me at least 3 months of total peace. No threat, just peace, which is so rare because Haiti's exploding. And I thanked Jimmy and I said, hey, what? How can I help you? And I'm waiting for, give me a nuclear warhead, submarine, you know. He said, I don't want anything except for you to meet with me. Come meet me. And I said, why? And he goes, I want you to see the children in the slums where I live. Nobody helps them. Nobody builds orphanages over here. Would you build an orphanage? And I thought, you got to be kidding me. Man, we set it up. I took a small team, no weapons, no nothing. Risked it, went in. Unbelievable. Spent a day with them. Unbelievable. And then spent the next day with another gang leader who was threatening the orphanage. And both of those men, I actually got to pray for. They let me pray for them. And I got to understand the why of gangs, which is the government. And they would tell me things that were outlandish, that, you know, the Haitian police division were gangs. They're just gangs with uniforms. And I'm like, yeah. And Jimmy's like, I was an officer for 9 years. I was in a special unit fighting gangs. He goes, who do you think started the gangs? It's the politician, the oligarchs, using the gangs for corruption, chaos. And he says, HNP ended up being the biggest, most deadly gang on the island. I got a video from November 8th. It's an HNP armored vehicle that the U.S. provided. They pull up in this town, little, you know, it's all, I mean, poor. They call a guy over. The guy's walking, he kind of hops over a little puddle. Zero, his body language is no threat. He's not an enemy. Comes over to the vehicle as they ask. They talk to him for a minute and boom, 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 shoot him. He flops down. He's trying to crawl away. The cop gets out and just, I mean, dumps a mag in him. It's horrific. Then rummages through his pockets for money, drives away, turns back around and runs over him. And that's the Haitian National Police. Now, I've got friends that work in there that I respect, but one thing everyone in Haiti says, no one trusts the government. So I developed a relationship with the president of Haiti, who didn't keep his word to me. And yet I have gang members, you know, trying to understanding. And Jimmy actually made an agreement, and first video is ever done in English. And he just said, I've come to an agreement with Victor Marx that all orphanages, children, missionary workers, people who help them are off limits. None of the gangs will mess with these people. So at least that was some forward motion. But I think what I was getting emotional earlier is Haitians are their worst enemy. There's so much hatred and lack of hope and a survival mechanism that, man, they will just kill anybody. They'll kill you for helping them if you make them mad. And the government must be removed. Honest people must be inserted. And the 11 million people who inhabit that island have got to be given hope. And I don't know if Jimmy's the one that really is going to do the revolution, because right now he's using dominance and violence. But Haiti is on the brink of destruction. And, you know, I get communication all the time from teams and people in Haiti, and they're like, oh, and they sent me one with a truck where it's just a bunch of burnt young men who were gang members. They killed them, burned them, stacked them, and it's just gruesome. And I'm like, and Haitians, man, they don't care. It's like, yeah. I'm like, man, you got to start loving each other. You got to start forgiving.
So I feel like you are in a unique position for me to delve into something that is fascinating, and I think not just intellectually interesting, but like it's a first principle issue that has to sort of be processed through, and it's outside the domain of science to some degree, and it's outside the domain of government to some degree. And I think it's the inability to like have this conversation productively is part of why this stuff persists. And it's really trying to understand like the heart of darkness, you know, evil itself. And because you hear this stuff, and I feel like most of the people in the world that sort of represent the base of resources to deal with these types of issues, i.e., you know, first world's middle class and up socioeconomically, right? We just have like no context, like no frame of reference. We don't even, you might as well be talking about, you know, how the political process works on like Neptune or something. It's that far afield. And so I think there's almost like an ignorance of evil. You know, I walk down the street where I live, I'm looking out right now, and like, I know there's evil out there, but it is so cloaked in like material dressing that, I mean, it's shit that's happening in a closet with a kid somewhere, but like, it doesn't manifest in the ways that you're describing. Like, what is your like theory of evil? How does this stuff come to the surface and hold in ways like you're describing?
Brother, you just opened up a can of worms that if you really want to go there, I have the absolute explanation of why this is happening, both in someone's home and globally in nations. One, there is good and evil. And I think most people understand that. Their frame of reference, whether it's God or higher power, whatever. When I talk to people...
Although oddly, what you just said, the fringes want to make what you just said controversial. They want to act like you're a fringe character for believing that there is fundamentally good and evil in the world. Because everything now is moral relativism is like the dominant,
right.
The loudest voice.
When people want to, I just go, shut up. It's, you know, you don't get a voice in this.
There's Mother Teresa and there's Hitler.
Yeah.
Move on.
Yeah, it's like, but what's interesting, even with people who hold kind of extreme views, when I want to share my faith, I don't start by saying, hey, do you believe in God? Because they'll be like, well, you know, I mean, God, you know, I just go, let me ask you something. Do you believe in evil? Now, people will be a little bit more intellectually honest with that because it's evil. I just read about a woman who's convicted in Atlanta 6 years ago. She took her 2 toddler boys and cooked them alive in the oven, videoed it, did it live to her ex-boyfriend, the kid's dad. I mean, that's evil. Well, mom...
You said she cooked them in the oven?
Yeah, killed them.
Yeah.
Held the door. They're kicking, screaming. Horrific. That's evil. That's against every aspect, even of a debased, mentally ill person. There's evil that's present. So most people have had an encounter or believe there's some aspect of evil.
Like there's no Darwinian explanation for that.
No. Yeah. And so the next question I asked them is, have you ever sensed or experienced some type of evil? And typically they go, yeah, you know, yeah, I remember. And then I go, okay. So I tell the person, and I'll tell you, I'll treat you just like I do every person that I'm in this conversation with. I go, I say this, I believe I've been given a gift to find out if evil studies and stalks you, very specifically you, with assignments to disrupt or destroy your life. It takes me 5 to 10 minutes. If I could find out if there was something that was hindering you as a human in being all that you want to be and accomplish and whatnot, or get rid of addictions or drivenness, if I could prove to you that it was demonic, it was evil, very specific, very personalized to you, would you want me to identify it, and destroy it for you. Takes 5 to 10 minutes. I mean, gosh, 99% of the people go, yeah. And then I do a little prayer thing called retooling. And I prayed for children, celebrities, housewives, generals in the Pentagon, Delta operators, in country, in theater, Christians, non-Christians. I just look at as a person, as a human. Last night, I prayed for a young man, 20 years old. He had spent time in a juvenile facility, had a rough upbringing. He was involved with some gang activity. And, you know, I said, hey, man, do you want me to check and see if there's any kind of evil? But he's like, yes. He goes, man, I feel like there is. Pray for him. He had 17 demonic entities assigned to him very specifically. And when I pray for someone, you know, I don't have to interrogate all the demons, but I get 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever. And I can tell a person when they came, what lies they've told you the most that have disrupted your life and you've believed. And if you believe a lie long enough becomes your truth, then then it's self-defeating. There's a handful of questions to ask. The demons respond. And then a person really gets set free. And then really huge breakthroughs happen. So that's one way. And the other is just, there's no other explanation for a level of evil that humans can do to one another. Evil's the only way.
There's no other species that turns on itself to the level of sort of unnecessary, inexplicable depravity like humans do.
Yeah.
I mean, I've tried to study nature. Like, there's no precedent for putting babies in an oven or something like that,
or catching someone on fire and pulling skin off of them and eating them. You know, it's like the.
So your position is that these incidents that go beyond any sort of like transactional logic of like, oh, I killed him. You know, sometimes a guy robs a person because they're so desperate, they actually believe that money is their salvation and they're willing to take a life for it. That's not necessarily like something demonic. That's just the tragic, you know, like
human
correlate of poverty or something.
Yeah.
Like you're saying you believe there's a supernatural driver to some of these types of things.
I do. You know, my wife and I started our ministry 21 years ago. Our emphasis was reaching juveniles in prison. So minors from 8 years old to 18 or whatever. And there would be crimes that kids would commit. I remember asking a girl one time, she was in Texas. She was drunk, high, whatever, her and her friend. She walks up to a door, knocks on it. An old lady, and she don't even know to say, says, can I help you? And then she just ran through the screen door, got a knife out of the kitchen, pinned the lady and stabbed her, I don't know, 70 times or something like bizarre. And I said, do you know why you did that? She goes, no, I blacked out. I don't even remember. And there's so many cases of that. But I even think, because the battlefield truly for a human is their mind.
Right.
And believe me, there are good days and bad days for even me. But we have a film out that people can watch. It's called The Unseen War. And it's an 8-part little series that anybody can watch and get a very clear understanding through a variety of different people what evil is and what it does and how we can effectively have victory over it. So it's called The Unseen War, and people can find it on Victor Marx with an X.com. Because it's under our resources or
yeah. I'm on your website. I actually want to find it. When I brought this line up, this sort of line of inquiry, I've always been fascinated, not in a
morbid
way, but in like by the concept of human evil. I read a book, one of the most powerful books that impacted my life. What'd you say the name of that film was?
It's The Unseen War.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna find that out. We'll get a link to that and put it in the show notes on your website. But so anyway, when I was younger, people a lot of times ask, what are top 5 books, right? I always say a book, and it's very rare that people are like, oh yeah, I've read that book. It's a very, I think, uncommon book in my experience, and it's called People of the Lie. And it's by Scott Peck, who is very well known for his book, Less Traveled.
Yeah.
But, and he's an interesting character. He's got a training as a Jesuit priest. So he's, trained in the spiritual realm, obviously the Catholic Jesuit tradition, a lot of talk of, good and evil. Yeah. And the supernatural, but he's also a psychiatrist, practicing psychiatrist, decades of experience as a medical practitioner. So he brings this spiritual and empirical, sort of unique combination to the fold. And his book, People of the Lie, is basically his attempt to medically and scientifically, from the perspective of a psychiatrist, quantify human evil as a pathology, like a disease type, almost rather than, and to remove all moral judgment. In other words, his position is, hey, look, we hate cancer, but when it comes time to treat somebody's cancer, we don't sit there and moralize about the cancer. We don't say, you cancer are so bad, you're so naughty, you're so evil, you're so corrupt, you're so demonic. No, it's like, we have to approach it as a scientific matter and take morality out of it in order to effectively develop a treatment protocol. Why don't we take that same approach with evil itself? And that's basically what the book is about. And that book changed my life, because I think it illuminated for me is the ways the human mind can kind of get twisted up in knots and produce horrifying results. And ultimately his theory, I'll fast forward to the ending, although I strongly encourage you and the audience to read the book if you haven't, is that all evil is at its core the nexus of narcissistic self-love and abject laziness. And he sort of defends that, again, as part of a theory, but the point is to develop a theory so that you can develop a treatment process. Anyway, a fantastic book, but ever since I read that book, I've been like, man, there's all these problems in the world that seem to have a component of evil, but because evil is outside the realm of whether it's the scientists or the politicians that are trying to deal with these issues, they never really get to the core of it.
Yeah. Well, and it's even religions often fall short in addressing what evil really is, but then having true victory over it. That's what I'm like. I've studied darkness, evil. I mean, I've done it, but it was for the purpose of trying to understand how can you have victory over it? Like, so it doesn't master you, doesn't affect you. And for people who don't know my story, there's a book out on my story called The Victor Marx Story, and you can watch videos. Documentary online. But
can you give us like kind of the marquee headline of your story? I mean, I know you were involved. You had troubled youth, drugs.
Yeah. My mother and father didn't make it the night she was pregnant. The night she got pregnant, he put rosary beads down her throat and a pistol to her head. That was the night I was conceived. My father didn't claim me as his child when, because my mother was not with him any longer. And
wait, I don't want to gloss over that. He put rosary beads down her throat and a gun against her head. Was he involved in some kind of ritual or satanic rite or something? Like, what's up?
I think it was some type of in his mind being driven to cleanse her from something. Okay. Because, you know, there were marital problems, and that was his way to, you know.
So he was troubled.
Yeah. So she would end up marrying a total of 6 times in her life. And I went to 14 schools, I think 17 different houses. My dad would end up being a practicing warlock because he did gain power from darkness. And, you know, ultimately, my mother, she had married a pedophile.
Your biological father.
Yeah.
My father becoming a warlock.
Yeah. And, you know, and then he came out of that, went the academic route. I mean, he was a bouncer, drug dealer, I mean, high level. And then he's like, oh, I've got to change my life. So he went academia, end up like earning a psychology degree, then master's, and he was working on his doctorate at an IQ of 185. He was tested twice at Stanford Binet. So I think sometimes with people who have extremely high IQs, they're just as much a target for the enemy of their soul because they struggle to find identity and acceptance in the normal realm, which they really can't, you know, because they just think different. So, you know, Elon Musk is a great example. He's done really good, but man, he thinks completely out of the box. It requires a lot of patience, but he's done amazing. So with all that said, my mother married a pedophile, and it was bad on us children. And I can only speak to my experience, but it involved very horrible things that would happen to a kid. The professionals, once I started getting treatment, you know, said it was torture, and from being electrocuted, dunked in a tub, sexual abuse, physical, emotional, all that. So it required 123 visits for me to see a trauma specialist to unwind some things in my mind, and make me functional. So
how old were you when you had that intervention?
I was an adult, man, because you compartmentalize and you develop these identities to help cope. But then you get to a certain point, I started unraveling, like you think you're doing great, but like probably in my late 20s, where I couldn't spin the plates anymore. I couldn't. I told people I had been keeping a beach ball underwater at the beach, but here comes the waves. I'm like, no. I don't want anybody to see this. Boom, it'd come up. And finally, you can't. So I was married. I'm thankful to my wife. You know, I always tell her, yeah, there may have been women that would have bought me at the store, but as soon as they found out how messed up I was, they would return me with the receipt quickly and say, this unit is broken. But again, you know, thank God I treated her like a gentleman. And I think she always saw in me even things I couldn't see in myself. But God has given her great faith. We're celebrating.
How long have you guys been together?
Is it 36? Next month is how many? 6. Yeah, so December it's 36.
So since you were 26, so she was there around the time this beach ball started popping up.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was actually, we had sent out our wedding invitations, and then all of a sudden I just went cold, like really cold. She's like, are you okay? And she's like, you know, what are you feeling? I go, I don't feel anything. It was a defense mechanism, because the only advice my mother ever gave me about women was never trust a woman. They'll only use you and leave you, because that was her modus operandi. And boom, I just stopped. I stopped having any feelings for her. And she was like, oh, you've got some challenges. And she said, we can call off the wedding. But she goes, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not your mom. And I will be here. I'll never forget. She says, if we're 85 years old and then you're ready to get married, she goes, then we'll get married. And that's the level of faith and tenacity she has. And thanks be to God, we ended up keeping the wedding date and got married. 5 children, 5 grandchildren now. So it's been quite a ride. We have a marriage course online at the same website, victormarx.com/marriage. They made it easy, but it is really, I tell people, you haven't had an argument with your wife until you're in Syria hiding from Assad's men, and the next morning you have to go into ISIS territory to help kids, and you get an argument at night before that. Now that's one. So our whole philosophy in marriage is learn to fight back to back, not nose to nose. And we still have to work it out after all these years, you know. I don't think the enemy of our soul ever stops trying to destroy marriages. And if nothing else, try to take the joy out of it, because marriage can be really wonderful. After we're done, I'll do the retooling prayer for you specifically, if you want.
I would love that. Is there a reason not to do it on air?
No, we can do it. I typically just say, it's up to the person.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an open book. You seem like an open book.
Oh yeah, I love it. Well, so we'll do it near the end. What other questions do you have?
Real quick, I want to let you know about my text message community. So I use text messages to provide unique value to my podcast listeners. These texts can just be random thoughts. It can be letting you be the first to know about an event I'm planning or some free training that I'm planning to host for the community. Just shoot me a text to get subscribed to the list. The number is 702-996-3926. Again, that number is 702-996-3926. Now let's get back to the podcast.
Yeah, well, I really would love to get your take, and I think this is relevant in the context of marriage, although outside of it as well. You know, a couple other books that have come to mind in this conversation about evil are like, the Screw Tape Letters.
Love it.
So good.
Love it.
My wife's actually re-listening to it right now. We've been talking about it. Outwitting the Devil, Napoleon Hill.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Books, I've just always been really interested in trying to understand the mechanisms. Because, like, I'll be honest, like, I'm a very cerebral person. I've been tested as highly intelligent. I recognize that thought traps are how people get themselves in trouble. You get a hold of these ideas. Karl Marx was a Satanist. Like, if you look up his history, and I mean, Marxism is practical Satanism.
Yeah.
And so you realize, you get a hold of these ideas. This is why there's so much rot at the university level, because intellectualism is a road to perdition if you don't know how to defend yourself. And so I've always wanted to understand the mechanism of the enemy so that I don't fall prey to it. And so that's where, I would love if you could illuminate from your unique vantage point, like maybe some of the ways that we'll just call it the devil. I don't care if anybody agrees with that designation, but how does the devil get you, and how can you be on guard before it gets its hooks in?
Yeah, man, great question. And I applaud you for your, what I call intellectual honesty. And yeah, I can tell you're a smarty pants. From the first time we met, I was like, oh, this guy, he got fifth gears up in that brain housing group. And
I appreciate that, but I'm terrified it'll get used against me. So,
well, so I think first we have to think of the battle between God and Satan. Satan was an angel in heaven, according to the Bible.
The most beautiful.
And gifted, talented, worship.
Lucifer means light.
Yes. So his sin was he wanted to be like the Most High. I will be, it was the basis for Satanism. I mean, as I understand different aspects of Satanism, it's just I will do what I want. And again, there's different levels. But this, I believe, that the only way Satan can get back at God for dumping him out of heaven, causing him to be a fallen being, is he goes after God's creation. And it's humans. God made us to be in fellowship with him. But right in the Garden of Eden, he tricked Eve through words, through deception, through a lie. And that's what I want people to understand. Satan isn't the pitchfork guy on the TV shows. And, most of that Hollywood stuff is meant to cause fear. Because fear can paralyze a person. I mean, Christians hate talking about the devil. When I speak at events, if I bring up the term devil or Satan, it gets really quiet. I'm like, because I've had many encounters with the manifestation of evil, a demon.
Sure.
Documented. I call myself the reluctant, exorcist. But Satan wants to destroy God's creation, that whom he loves. And the only way he can do it is through deception. He's known as the father of lies. And that is where he gets people in the mind traps. He started with Eve. Did God really say you couldn't? He challenged the Bible or God's word. Did God really say that? And he still does it today. That's why people hate the Bible. I'm like, why would you hate the Bible? The Christian faith, it's not, Jesus never did anything to destroy, hurt people. I mean, he's a good guy by all accounts and measures. If you start lining up other religious leaders, I'm like, so the deception, the lies are what takes a toll on a person. I tell women this. I go, I'll give you a little test to see if you're actually under what I'd call, you have assignment against you. And they're like, okay, what? I go, when you get out of the shower, grab a towel, you're looking in the mirror, you're getting ready. There's no makeup, there's no lashes, there's no pizzazz. It's just you. Do you ever hear thoughts in your mind that say, you're ugly, you're fat, you're not loved, you can't be loved, you're a slut, you did this, you killed that baby, you, whatever it is, he doesn't love you. And women, 99% of the time go, oh, yeah. I've said, so it's negative chatter in your head. And then I simply say this, are they saying you or is it I? And they're like, what do you mean? I go, well, there's only three sources of thoughts. Yourself, which is assessments. I need to lose weight. I got to do that. God, which would encourage you, or even conviction, is still loving.
Right.
I mean, it's not you that God doesn't. That's not God's character. Or the third, which is the enemy, demonic, dark voice, that whisper, because sometimes whispers are a whole lot louder than yelling. These little things, but they're in the third person. You, he, that, and then of course, ladies go, oh yeah. I go, well then you probably have an assignment against you. Would you like me to destroy it? They're like, yes. It's that fast. For most.
What a simple mechanism. Just like inner monologue, check in. First or second person? If second person, loving or judgmental?
Period.
If judgmental, therefore evil.
Yeah. And I would say the only caveat, since we're talking about it, I do believe that people can have splits in their personality due to extreme trauma, which it can get a little messy, but that would still fall under the category of your own assessment.
Right.
Even if it's you. I only say that to people who I have lots of voices in my head. And I go, believe me, I understand more than you know. So yeah, the Bible says, take every thought captive to the obedience of Christ.
Yeah.
That's a discipline very few practice. So we would call it in the realm of martial arts or combat situational awareness, SA. Which is the biggest. I was working with some guys that are like, hey, boom, boom. The most important thing is situational awareness. I said, for us to do our job, if we can get in and out without conflict, man, that's the highest level of. I said, me and my friends joke because one of the guys on our team, his name is Todd Langley. He's been head of my security. But we laugh because I've had Delta operators say Todd is actually the real Jason Bourne, like in real life, and Todd's like a big nerd. I'll just tell everybody now, sorry, Todd's a nerd. He's not a knuckle dragging super stud, but he actually is. But he's a cerebral, high intellect, problem-solving guy. He's one of the smartest people I know. But he can also carry a rock forever, shoot any weapon you put in his hand, devise a plan to get out of any situation. I mean, it's mind-boggling. But he's not the Hollywood type. We were joking one day. He said, actually, Jason Bourne, he's a horrible spy. If we're just, like Mission Impossible, they're horrible spies. These guys, because the best spies get their stuff done, get out. I had a friend who went into a certain country, assassinated a very bad person. And it was a full assassination. He was in a black ops team, killed him because the guy needed to be killed. I'll just say that killing saved lives, which is what I believe. And he ended up dumping his weapons, changing clothes, boom, and he ran out of the country through a mountain range. The guy could run like 150 miles. That's pretty radical.
Yeah.
And he calls himself a nerd. He goes, actually, I'm just a nerd. But so to your point, take every thought captive, situational awareness, and that's when I get caught off guard, is when I'm thinking about something and not realizing it's actually an enemy putting thoughts in my mind. Or like if I get angry, then it's like my mind is open for business.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, yeah. And you start like, yeah. My wife will come along and she'll say, hey, are you negotiating with the devil? Is that the term you've used? Yeah. And then I'll be like, what? And she goes, stop negotiating with the devil. Use scripture, because it's a spiritual battle, but it's in the mind. So I see so many people get free. And that film I spoke of, The Unseen War, it explains it all.
Well, so as I'm hearing you explain this, Peck's thesis around narcissism and laziness makes a lot of sense, because it's the little I-centric thoughts that are going to be generated by the kind of the narcissistic, putting myself above others and or what else is out there, coupled with the laziness to just say, I'm not really up for being vigilant. to hold every thought captive or to
Right.
be on guard. And so what's crazy is these monsters that you confront, at some point, that was just a man or a woman having a little bit of slippage in their thinking and being a little too kind of high on themselves and their own, place in the universe. And from that tiny little spark begins a brush fire of evil catalyzing and metastasizing in their mind. And eventually you have them, like you said, eating babies or setting women on fire. Like, it's just crazy that they weren't born that way.
No.
And they didn't, and nobody made them become that way at the point of a gun. It was a thought. It was a little lazy thought.
And I mean, trauma can certainly change the course of a person's life, but it's never an excuse.
Well, yeah, but there's just as many, if not more, stories of trauma, of people experiencing trauma and saying, okay,
redemption.
I'm going to make sure that my children never experience that.
That's it. I was on Sean Ryan's podcast. Do you know who Sean Ryan is?
I've heard the name.
He's got the #1 podcast in the world right now. Even over Joe Rogan.
I'm showing my ignorance.
Well, no, he came out of nowhere, Jeff. This guy, he worked for the CIA. He was a SEAL before that. And he was on a spiritual journey. I think he kind of covered it up through a podcast because he would ask operators and people who've done stuff, he'd be like, so how do you handle, PTSD, craziness? And it's amazing what he's done. And now the men and women he's interviewed, it's mind-blowing. But I was privileged to be asked to come on his program. It's show number 83.
Okay.
Sean Ryan, number 83.
I just pulled it up, so I'm gonna probably listen to it at the gym tomorrow.
Yeah, it's heavy content. There's 3 interviews, and I will tell people it's heavy content because I said I would take the time and tell everything. Yeah. So 5.5 hours in the studio, we did it. I told my wife, I'll never do it again. I won't do it for Joe Rogan. I won't do it for, it doesn't matter. So if I want the full Victor Marx story, I got to listen to the Sean Ryan episode. Yeah, there's 3 of them. One clip of me doing something had 22 million views. I did the goodness on. It's the most popular clip I think he has. But it's you're right.
There it is.
People,
I found it. Yeah.
Okay. People start off, and that's how I look at even really bad people. I've looked evil in the eye where I've had to tell a demon, just shut up. Stop using this person's voice. Because the poor person was given over so much. We call it demonization. There's just some different levels. And even with the taboo subject of pedophiles, when I said at the beginning of the show, I said it's not fixable by wood chippers in prison. There are the biggest demographic of users of child porn right now, and you may have to bleep every time I say porn or whatever, but is 20-year-old young men, the 20s, because they've been, consuming, horrible stuff since they were 8, 9, 10. They're desensitized to everything. And then the evil or darkness of the world says, well, try this. Because
they got to keep upping the ante to try to get that stimulation.
Dopamine, it's selfish. My wife uses that term. We don't hear it much in life. Narcissistic, but she just goes, that's very selfish. It's like so basic.
Yeah.
On anything, I'm like, wow. It's what you used to see when we were kids, my wife and I, in school, like selfish, bad things, good things. And And the enemy capitalizes on it until, and I want everybody to hear this, there's a point you cannot break free.
Because you're not doing your own thinking anymore.
You're not.
Yeah.
You've yielded over. You're believing lies. It's your truth. And you kind of get molded to it. And it requires.
I was just going to say, like, I've met people like that where you can feel it's almost like there's almost like a puppet quality to it. Like,
yeah.
It doesn't feel sanely human in origin, the conversation that you're having.
And you can get hints of that when people are intoxicated or on drugs, where you go, whoa, think about it. The word spirits.
Right.
Go to a liquor store, spirits. These are gate openers that people will do things they would never do if they weren't under the influence of a spirit, alcohol, and then demonic. And so here's the great news with all of this, is that there's a loving God who wants to be a father to pretty much a fatherless world. And he's not judgmental. He really does love. He loves people. And it breaks his heart to see what a mess we've made in so many areas. And he's always willing to redeem what the evil has done in any person's life, in any nation's life. Like, I just posted a video on my Instagram. I mean, it's Trump giving a testimony to Jesus Christ as the Savior and the hope for this country. And he goes, God's the only hope. It ain't me. I mean, he's being, and then I'm showing clips of Haiti, because, I mean, Haiti is on the brink of complete collapse. It's horrible. And
what does complete collapse mean in a raw, like, no holds barred descriptive sense? Like, what are you talking about?
No police, no law enforcement.
Yeah.
Zero. No judges. Complete anarchy. No form of government. The ports shut down.
So you're basically talking Lord of the Flies with 11 million people.
The answer is yes.
Yeah.
And the problem with that is it is the government's fault. Corrupt regimes nonstop for decades and decades and decades have created the need for gangs to revolt, or what most people don't understand, the gangs were started by politicians and wealthy people to create chaos, to keep 11 million people 8 in complete abstract poverty. They say 65% of the children can't read or write. I've driven and seen, a man peeing in a puddle of water and a kid bathing in it, the same type of filth. Roads that have been cut off because there's no sanitation. I mean, they don't have a postal system. They don't have a phone line. I mean, it is a poorest nation in the Western Hemisphere. And I love what Barbecue Jimmy says. He goes, man, tell the UN, leave us alone. Tell the US we don't want their money. Because it's countries that have controlled them.
Yeah.
They used to be famous for their crops, sugar, rice, of the sort. Do you know there's an embargo that I think it was Clinton put an embargo way back then that they couldn't sell their rice, right? And then they had to buy it from the US for 10 times the amount of what rice could be produced. It's crazy making. So you have good people on both sides. That's all I keep saying. I know there's good people in the gangs. I know there's good people in the government, you know, and then there's the middle of good businessmen, people who care, but there's this functional thread that runs through it, and unless people are held to account for corruption, you know, and unless, like somebody said, oh, the video, which is on the Instagram, of that cop getting out, shooting them, running over him. He goes, well, that guy's in prison. I go, no. The prison, the biggest prison there was attacked by the gangs, walls blown out. They all, I think it's 4,000 guys gone. They don't have a prison. That's why they shoot people. Like, oh, you're a bad guy. Boom, boom. They can't arrest them. So that's, yeah.
It's interesting as you're talking. It's like, because all this stuff gets so convoluted, and it's like one of the things you're not supposed to say in today's world is that there's really only two sides.
Right.
Good and evil. And both sides are present on every side of every issue.
Yeah. Well, I have done things to save children that I would say would be gray. If you were talking like things that wouldn't necessarily make some people comfortable, and, you know, to go, oh, and I go, well, I have a clear conscience before God, you know, you know, life and death, this kid's free. So yeah, for Haiti, the only hope is God. For the U.S., for everybody who wanted Trump in, I'm like, okay, great, Trump's in. There's a lot of work to do. Have you seen our debt? There's 8 million people in the country. My wife and I helped some get in at the river, women and children. And then the same night, hook up bad guys dragging kids in who were traffickers for children. Nods on, gun going, okay, you just got caught getting the Border Patrol. And, you know, I took a team, we went all the way down the migrant trail. I'm all for immigrants coming in, but people had better realize there are a lot of nefarious characters that took advantage of no process and getting in.
Yeah.
And like I had a team in Israel days after Hamas attack and end up going, seeing the worst of everything. That was another complete, like, the boots I wore, I walked in so much blood of children and innocent people and carnage. I don't wear those boots anymore. I was like, no, when I get back, I was like, I will never put those on because of what it represents. And again, you know, Gaza, Hamas, I would say, because I was doing Fox hits or Fox News and some other ones, but I'm like, they're like, tell Israel to stop, you know, American people, free Palestine. I go, how about just tell Hamas that's occupying the Palestinian controlled area, stop shooting rockets over here. If you're losing, if you're dying, if kids are being, stop shooting rockets. Oh, kids are starving. You got, I don't know how much money they put into weaponry, but they still haven't run out. It blows my mind. I mean, it blows my mind. One day we were there, babe, wasn't there like 2,000 rockets in a day?
Oh, yeah.
My wife still has her app of when rockets are dropping. I'm like,
what kind of rockets are they?
They're typically they're ones that they have it built where.
Well, the reason I'm asking is you said 2,000. I'm going to Google how much one of them costs.
Oh yeah, I'm trying to think what.
These are the ones that came from Iraq.
Yeah. Iran is where most of them came from, but they're not handheld or shoulder fed. The ground will open up, something will rise, and boom, 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 boom. They're firing them out. I have a piece of a rocket here at our training center I brought back that was fired on our location. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. So there are different sizes, but I'm telling you, it's hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah, I'm reading about, so there's something called the Arrow 3 missile that's a $2 million a piece. There's a Shahab 3 missile, which is Iranian produced, that's $3 million a piece.
Yeah.
And you're talking 2,000 in a day.
Yeah, it's insane.
And you're saying Hamas has this in inventory.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they have
billions of dollars of weapons.
Billions.
Yeah.
But
they say they got no money to feed these starving kids and it's Israel's fault.
Yeah, the reality is the billions they've received in aid, they could have made that place in Abu Dhabi, okay? Qatar. There's no doubt. That's not an exaggeration. It's unreal. So some people are so driven. And look, I've got Palestinian friends. We're in the West Side. Man, I love Palestinians. But the evil that is driving Hamas to use Palestinians, that's evil again at a whole different level.
So, and my next hard stop, I'm not going to be able to wriggle out of. So we basically got to land this in about 10, 15 minutes.
Okay. So we need to pray. So,
well, and we got to do that. But I want to ask you a question before we do.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've really struggled to try to build a framework for in my mind so that I can I wouldn't say make peace with it, but at least not have it be an open loop that I can't close, is the issue of pedophiles. And my question is pedophilia, from your point of view, is it like call it like an organic, like an unnatural but organically originating mutation of sexuality? Or is it call it a trick of outright spiritual evil that's using sexuality to a nefarious purpose? You see the distinction I'm asking?
Yeah, you articulated it really well. I think it can be both and, or either or. Okay. Because I know men who have struggled or would be labeled pedophilia, they struggle with pedophilia. And the origin isn't sexuality, it's comfort. It's closeness. It's I'm protecting this kid by being friends with him. I'm currently working on a case where this pedophile, it's an open case, and he's going to get arrested, but he was a longtime friend of mine, which shocks people. I'm like, don't be shocked. Don't be shocked. It's more prevalent than you think. The problem is he was in ministry, and I found out later in life he was molesting boys. And now guess what? The boys are all men, grown men. So they're coming to me, and but here's something very interesting. One of the victims, who's like in his 40s, he said, but I really loved him. I mean, he made me feel so good. He says, I still have love, and he's such a nut. Like I said, I understand. I said, sometimes men will groom a young person, but they in their mind, they're doing it out of the purest sense, without any perversion in mind, because they genuinely care for you. But then it moves over to a selfish act of, this would be pleasurable, or let me take. And that's where things get mixed up, because most kids without fathers or absent fathers, they want a male adult to affirm, pay attention to them. And then you're way down the road when the guy says, hey, touch me, or what's this? And it's a game or whatever, but then it gets, so I think.
But you think that there was potentially something that was sincere and not malevolent up to a point
Yes.
that then somehow maybe got hijacked or twisted.
Completely.
Like, it wasn't necessarily that way from the beginning.
I completely agree.
Huh.
Yes, I believe that. You know, it's but it's not anything different, except it's an extremely heinous act because it's a child versus a guy who's married who is really enjoying this relationship with a girl he works with, and she listens to him, and it's fun, and you're like, oh gosh, so cool. Like I said, and the next thing you know, they're in and it's and all of a sudden now there's emotions and feelings wrapped in, connected to this physical deal.
Yeah, that's a powerful, and I can see how some people might be offended by the analogy, but like logically, that makes a lot of sense what you just said, that there are pedophiles who start out as innocently as there are adulterers who thought initially they were just having a casual friendship with another woman.
Right. So the justification is where the problem comes in. I call it, stinking thinking or dysfunctional.
Well, the deception. The deception.
It's a total deception. And the lies are reiterated like, well, you're not hurting him.
Right.
You're teaching him pleasure. It's this constant, but it's always wrong. I tell people there's never an excuse for abuse. The lives of those particular victims I'm talking about, every one of them have had horrible lives. Every one. And my wife always says, if the abuser just knew what they're about to do, the life they're going to damage, because you damage a person's soul, a child's soul.
Well, Victor, I mean, first of all, I'm grateful. It sounds like we're going to do this retooling prayer, and I'm a little nervous, but mostly I'm excited and grateful. But beyond that, just like, thanks for what you do in the world. I know you said not all men need to go do what you do, but thank God some men do.
Well, I appreciate that, and I would say the best way men could help is be good dads, protective fathers. I talked to girls who were trafficked actually right here in the studio one time. I said, nobody really asked y'all about how do you stop, because they were in the sex industry. And they were very blunt. They go, wow, thanks. It's typically people telling us what needs to be done. But this was the 4 things they said. 1, stop arresting the guys pimping us, because it doesn't get better for us. It's an arrest. We have to work harder. It's like, that makes y'all feel good. It makes our life hell. I was like, check. They said, next is get us a job. If you want to rescue us, as young women, help us get a job to make money. You're excited about the rescue, but then what? Okay, I'm rescued. All I know is I got to pay bills. Now I can go right back to that. Next, give us psychological help. Help us with the abuse we received as a child, because that's where most of this stuff got sideways.
Yeah.
And then finally, just like, help us, with legal issues, how to get a license, how to pay for traffic tickets. It was all just practical. But the worst thing I ever heard a trafficker say is, I want to thank the dads, uncles, and brothers for preparing the girls for us. Y'all did a good job. So for me, if men can just be good men, love their kids, protect them, moms, man, stop the divorce rate. A broken home makes a child vulnerable. There are certainly need reasons to divorce. But I just talked to a lady the other day. She's married to a doctor, been married 25, 26 years. And she just goes, we're separated. I'm living somewhere else. I go, have you committed adultery yet? She goes, no. I said, emotionally? She goes, yes. I said, why? She goes, he's just not the man I want. He's more like a brother. I'm not attracted to him at all. And she did say, you're the type of man that I really want. Go getter, masculine. You know, I'm like, I'm only one type of warrior. Your husband's a doctor. I'm like, work with him, help him. And it was, to me, again, I believe she's believing lies. And maybe he needs to take some testosterone or something. I don't know. But it breaks my heart to go, wait, you'll have children? No.
Yeah.
No. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I read the other day, I think 70% of all divorces are initiated by women, and about half of them are all initiated within roughly 5 years of menopause.
Yes.
That women have a hormonal shift, their preferences change, their sexuality changes, their identity changes, and their dissatisfaction increases. And suddenly it's like, what change can I make? And then the family gets sacrificed.
The beautiful thing is, like I tell people, I've been married to several women. The beautiful thing is just, she's in one package.
They all have the same driver's license, right?
It's safer and less expensive. Especially since my wife's a long distance shooter. But yeah, you know, it's when you enter those areas of challenge, you just go, all right, let's make it do this. You'll be better for it. I can say that with all certainty. Don't give up, push through, go, hey, this sucks. Let's get through it. And
well, listen, let me say to the audience, if you're listening to what Victor's saying right now and you're feeling convicted in your heart of like, yeah, I would like to lean in and work on my relationship. The episode I recorded earlier today with Topaz Adises has some real gold for you.
Nice.
How to have the deepest conversation you've ever had with your significant other kind of stuff.
Wow.
Victor, again, humbly, are you open to doing this prayer?
Easy day. Yeah,
I'd love to finish with that if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're going to do is I'm going to find out if there's any specific entities, demonic assignments against you. Demons typically will study and stalk our human in order to detract, destroy, whatever. The only thing that's required of you as we pray, I'll ask the demons, whether there's one or more, I'll ask them a series of questions. They have to answer me, but they're going to answer me through your mind because that's what we're working on, right? You have to answer the telephone.
Right.
This is what I tell people, and I tell you, don't overprocess. You'll get in a world of hurt if you're like, okay, I just heard that, and then you're processing. This is recorded, so you can always go back and watch it. If this gets deep or personal, the good thing is you can go, well, I'm editing that out.
Yeah, we're not live streaming this, so.
Yeah, and I'll keep it, and my wife and I look at it. But it is very supernatural, and here's a question I'll ask you. If God does reveal, because it's him that's in charge of all this freedom, if he does reveal that there's a demon or more that's assigned to you, lying to you, and it grants you freedom, what would you do with that if you were granted this freedom from this oppression that possibly you've carried for many years?
I would attempt to go deeper with what I have been trying to do for the last few years of my life, which is just completely surrender to his will and his calling for me to serve as many people as possible through the work that I believe right now, the work that I'm doing is the design of the work that I'm called to do. If that changes, I'll change. But
that's awesome.
My answer is just use the opportunity of freedom to go even deeper.
That's it. Bing, bing, bing. For that, I won't charge you because normally I charge per demon. That's how I buy ammo and guns. That's a joke, people. It's a joke. Okay, awesome. So, although the prayer is very supernatural, it's conversational. So at any time you can go, or if I ask a demon a certain question and he's going to say it, but it's like very personal in nature, the answer, you can just go, I know what that is. So there doesn't have to be any like, because it worked all the same. So Heavenly Father, thank you for Jeff. Lord, maybe all of this is really because of this right now. Because I've only had, I think, one other man ever ask me to be able to pray for them while we were recording. So Lord, I pray you would just grant him freedom if it's needed, and bless him for his faith and his obvious courage. Lord, and thank you that he's used his intellect for good, not evil. And Lord, I ask now that you would encapsulate him in the room that he's in with your seamless canopy of your blood. Any demonic forces that are on the outside trying to communicate with any demon or demons specifically assigned to him, pray that you would cut off their communication and isolate them. Next, Lord, would you draw a circle of judgment in the realm we can't see, but we know it exists. That's where demons and angels battle it out to shoot fiery darts into humans' minds, to destroy or destruct, do what they do. Next, Lord, I pray that as this circle you have, you'd post 2 warring angels on either side of it with flaming swords for correction and order. And now, Father, would you shine your light from your throne directly in that realm and expose any demon or demons that may be assigned to him. Hey, demon, you know my voice and by what authority I come to you in. It's the person of Jesus Christ. I command you now, by the authority of Christ Jesus, to step into the circle of judgment, that one that God's light is shining on. Kneel down and bow your head in shame. You're to answer my questions clearly, concise, and quickly to your subject, Jeff's mind, or you will be punished severely. And that punishment will last for eternity. So, demon, first question. How old was Jeff when you first got assigned to him? What was his age?
30.
30?
Yeah. And I presumptively, this process works by me saying kind of the first thing that
Yes.
comes up.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
At 30 years old, remind him, what was the circumstance going on in his life? What was happening?
Just a lot of strife within my second marriage and a lot of financial turmoil, financial pressure.
Yep. Hey, demon, what's the top 3 lies you've told Jeff since he was 30? I want to know the top 3 lies that have worked most against him. First lie.
You're not like other people.
Second lie.
You're ugly.
Third lie.
You can't get ahead in this world without taking from someone.
Good. Demon, what was the purpose for you being assigned to him? What were you tasked to try to accomplish against him?
Just keep him from finding God's path for his life.
There. Yep. Demon, by what name do you most go by? Give him a name. And it doesn't matter what you hear, just tell me.
I mean, what came to mind was the word Mo.
M-O.
Mo.
Spirit, we bind you to the name of Mo. Are you in fact the head demon in charge of the stronghold against him? Yes or no?
Yes.
How many demons are working under you specifically against Jeff? What's the total number?
13 came to mind, and of course, immediately I'm questioning it. That's the number, but that's the first thing that came to mind.
Yeah, the questioning is always part of the process, but you hear super well. Believe me, you're tuned in. All right, demon, bound in the name of Mo, who's the head demon, and there's 13 underneath you. Do you have a legal right to stay assigned to him any longer? Yes or no?
No.
All right, last question, demon. What is the one thing that God Almighty, Jeff's father, Heavenly Father, what has he been trying to communicate to the deepest part of Jeff's soul since he was 30? The deepest part of his soul but you've kept him from believing in the deepest way. What is the one truth?
That you are worthy of love, and it's not something you have to earn or qualify for.
Wow. It's getting you in that, right in the deepest part of your soul. Jeff, that is the number one answer I hear from humans all around the world. And it's the one that gets them deepest part of their soul. It's that powerful. So the last question is for you. Do you want this head demon and the 13 under him to mess with you any longer?
That would be an emphatic no.
Bing, bing, bing. We have a winner, Johnny. All right. Hey, demon, bounds in the name of Mo. You've heard the will of this man of God. I stand with him in agreement. So we command you by the authority of Jesus Christ to go directly now to the footstool of Jesus, kneel before the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. You will never return to the spirit of this man, his loved ones, his offspring, even his animals. You will never be assigned or deal with or mess with a human ever again. You've been found, you've been judged perfectly now by our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Hey, Father, would you shine your light from your throne into that area of Jeff's soul that held that stronghold where they lied to him all these years? Would you illuminate that so that part of his soul, there's no darkness. There's not even a shadow, but it's just bright, clear, and beautiful. And Jesus, would you take your precious blood that you shed on the cross, and would you swab out the air of his soul? In that supernatural way, we know your blood cleanses, but it also brings life. And I pray now, that which Jeff has desired, but not attained, but knew something in his heart was placed there to do things beyond what he even thought is possible. Pray now you give him the capacity he's never had to accomplish it, not as a performance and not to gain love. Simply, it's an outpouring of something you've ordained for him to do. And finally, Lord, I pray that you, by the power of your Spirit, you'd fill him with your love and seal him, because that is what makes us men rest and feel peaceful, knowing that you preordained good things for us to do. Know that we don't have to perform in order to get, but we can rest and walk with you in that relationship as God, our Father, who gives us our identity for great things, and that we're enough because of your strength, your giftedness, and your power. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I will report from the front lines that being prayed over by I was going to say by a dangerous gentleman, although I realize you're a conduit. It's not about you, but yeah, a really cool experience, and I definitely I felt that shift. So hey, thank you, Victor.
You're welcome, man. And this is what I encourage people to do who, have been prayed for like this, is now exercise in a greater way, taking every thought captive. Because there's a difference between a stronghold, that's somebody who has you, and it's hard to break out, versus an arrow that's coming, and you hear it, and you hold up your shield and go, no, that's a lie. I don't even buy it. Blood of Jesus covers me. I don't have time for that nonsense. And that's an offensive prayer. You're aggressive with it, to not just take these thoughts. The other thing, this was a moment of impact, and it was supernatural. There's no hypnotism. There's no, I didn't prep you to try to make you think or say anything. It was supernatural. It was either God or it wasn't. So don't ever let the enemy try to, oh, well, really? Because typically he does, he'll come, oh, wow. But here's the beautiful thing. The outcome. The outcome is what this is all about. And you will have breakthroughs in your life. I promise you, you'll contact me and go, or you'll break through something, but it feels natural. It's like, and all of a sudden you'll stop and go, oh my gosh. And the Holy Spirit will remind you, remember the day that you got set free. You had increased capacity to do what I placed in your heart to do. but now you're free to do it. And that's is a whole lot more energy you don't have to spend in fighting the lies that you can spend loving people, doing what you want to do, self-care, all of it. It's pretty amazing. So,
well, here's my commitment is at some point when I have the clarity and the conviction that I've experienced an outcome, like an altered outcome possibility as a result of this. So essentially at some point when I feel like enough water's run under the bridge, that I can reflectively say, okay, here's the impact I think that had. I will create a piece of content and I will link it back to this interview and try to close the loop.
I love it.
Yeah.
And I'll put that on my podcast because
all right.
What I'll tell you, I told you I've done this one time before, and it was with a guy I prayed for actually over the phone. And he was a big marketer dude. And he's like, hey man, can we do a Zoom? I'm like, yeah. So he's recording and he just goes, and he didn't even know how to explain it to people because stuff was changing so fast. It was very cool to watch. But that sparked an interest among people who no faith, whatever. They're like, this dude doesn't lie. He's got nothing to benefit. Nobody wants money. There's, it's like, and that caused a beautiful, natural interest in the things of God for many, many people and who got a lot of freedom. So, all right, man. Cool. Thank you.
Hey, Victor, incredible conversation, man. So grateful you came on the show. And just on behalf of the audience, thank you.
You're welcome. My privilege and honor. Please give your bride a hug for us.
I will. And you please do the same. And of course, to all you viewers and listeners, even with Victor's here, you're the best part of this show. You're why we do it. And I'm so grateful we all got to spend this time together. We'll see you next time.
If you loved that episode, then you're definitely going to love this one. Check it out.
Your wife comes home this evening. She goes, Jeff, why do you love me? You're not going to be wondering why you love her. You're going to be wondering what the hell happened that she's coming home asking that question. You can be uncomfortable and you can be safe. Are we present to each other in the discomfort of the questions, not necessarily in how we're responding with the answers? That to me is intimacy.